What's good? What's good? What's good, everyone? Thank you so much for tuning back into Living More with the Morgans. I am your host for tonight. My name is DJ Landa Jere, Landa G, and I'm with my beautiful wife, DJ Ro, is in the building. She throwing up the peace sign. We doing it like that tonight because this is a special episode of Living More with the Morgans, the hip hop episode, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And like we want to do all the time, every time, we got to give a shout out to those who are on our social media channels right now, watching us all over. And Carmenisha has tuned in and said, we can hear now. We can hear now. Tamika Green is in the building. She's saying, hey fam, they can hear now, you guys. So we do apologize for those that were tuned in earlier. We had some technical glitches, you know, this man-made stuff. It kind of goes haywire every now and then, you guys, but we back in full effect. We back in the house, you guys, for the hip hop episode. And we're gonna celebrate 50 years of hip hop tonight right here on Living More with the Morgans. And so if you're tuned in on our social media platforms right now, we want to invite you, those who are not tuned in, go ahead and share on your wall. Go ahead and let people know that this is a clean content show. No cussing, no fussing. We ain't finna do none of that goofy stuff on here on Living More with the Morgans. Everything is clean, everything is pure. We're gonna dig into it tonight. We're gonna talk about the ins and outs, the ups and downs of hip hop, what it has done for our culture, what it has done for the world, how it has impacted people around the globe, you guys. And so right now, if you're tuned in on our social media channels, you're on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Living More Morgans. If you're tuned in on YouTube, we can't see you over there on YouTube, but if you're tuned in, shout out to our people on YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're not on our YouTube channel and you want to be and you want to subscribe, you can subscribe at our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Living More Morgans. We're also live on Twitter, Periscope right now, twitter.com/Live More Morgans. We had to shorten it, so it's Live More Morgans on Twitter. And then you can also connect with us, follow us, like us. You can do all that good stuff on our TikTok page. We are on TikTok under Living More Morgans. You can find us there. And then finally, we're on Instagram. We're not live on Instagram, but you can follow and connect with us on Instagram at instagram.com/Living More Morgans. And so you guys, we're all over social media. So bring your peoples in, get them connected to Living More with the Morgans. Go ahead and share this on your wall. Do us a favor and share on your wall, fam.
Share.
Let people know that you got something good going on every Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. Central, right here on Living More with the Morgans. And so you guys, we got a good one tonight, and my baby looking good tonight, y'all. I mean, you know, she came through. No, we had to change it up because we both two generations of hip hop represented tonight. My baby got on the 80s gear. She got on the Adidas. She got on her Kango, the gold chain,
my bamboo earrings.
The bamboo earrings, at least two pair. You dig? And so my baby looking good. MC Light over here, I feel you. MC Ro is in the building. And then, you know, I had to represent for the 80s, late 80s, 90s babies. I'm over here in the, you know, I got the spinning chain, you know how we do, you know. We're doing over here in the bad boy jersey, you know what I'm saying? So I'm representing for all the 90s. Thank you, baby. Thank you. I'm trying to do it, you know what I'm saying? So you guys, again, this is a fun show tonight. We're going to dig into the background, into the history of hip hop. For those who may not necessarily know, those who are tuned in around the world may not necessarily know about the background of hip hop. Why is it so special to so many people globally around the world? And then at the end of the show, we're going to give our top 20 favorite artists of all time, our favorite artists.
Stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned for that, you guys. Now, it may not necessarily be your top 10.
And put it in the comments.
Yes,
Who's your favorite?
Who is your favorite, right?
And make sure you interact,
Absolutely.
everyone. We want you to interact.
Absolutely.
This is an interactive show.
This is an interactive program, you guys. And so be sure, hit the comments, hit the likes. We want to see some hearts. We want to see some messages. We want to engage with you guys. This ain't about just us doing all the talking and y'all just doing all the watching. No. Engage back and forth with us, you guys. Excuse me. And we're going to have some fun tonight, you guys. And like I said, we're going to dig into the history of hip hop from what we know, from our perspective. We may not be 100% accurate, but from what we know and how we grew up and what we grew up seeing and how we grew up in the culture, we're going to definitely come from that angle and from that vantage point tonight, you guys. And so I want to hit these comments real quick and see who's on with us. Like I said, our girl Tamika Greenlong, she is in the building and she is hearing sound right now.
Thank you.
Family is in the building, you guys. Carmenisha Spraglin is in the building.
So awesome.
And she is definitely a hip hop head.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
She should have reached out to Diddy years ago, like I asked her to. I hope you reached out to Diddy, Karma. But yo, thank you so much for you guys for tuning in. We got some other ones in the building.
Yes.
Who else we got? We got our girl Angela Huma's in the building. She's saying hello, Morgans. Definitely in. My girl Candace Soul Ross, all the way from kindergarten, preschool.
Oh,
she is in the building tonight. Thank you so much,
Welcome.
Candace,
Thank
for coming
you.
in.
Yes.
Oh man. Let's see who else we got. And so Karma is saying that she is an 80s baby.
Yeah.
Already. Angel born in the 80s, raised in the 90s. You already know. Tamika talking about Run DMC, the Fat Boys. Y'all know. Okay,
Look.
so we got all day.
You see it?
All day, all day, all day, you guys. And so we're going to have some fun tonight again. Before we get into it, be sure to share on your wall. Invite some other people to come in. Like I said,
so we can have fun tonight.
Let's have some fun, right? Because, you know, sometimes people will be so rigid and just so, you know, stiff on social media, especially going live and everything. We're not finna do that tonight. We're finna have some fun.
And with everything that's going on, you know, we need some fun. We need some joy. We need to laugh. We need to reminisce. We need to, you know, do all those things because it brings joy. It brings peace.
Absolutely. And that's what it's called living more. It's called living more for a reason, right? And so in spite of everything that we're going through, in spite of everything that you may be going through, you might have had a tough week so far. We're only into Tuesday, but if your weekend was rough and you already rough, this is a time. Take this next hour, hour and a half or so just to chill, just to relax, just to kick it, just to, you know, just to reminisce on good times in your childhood. And you can always be yourself here on Living More with the Morgans. You got, we're going to cut up, we're going to act a fool, we're going to do all of that, we're going to trip out, we're going to have fun. This is what we do. This ain't Tuesday night Bible study. This ain't that. If you was tuned in for that, this ain't that. We finna get into this hip hop for real, for real. And so you guys, again, thank you so much for those who are tuned in. Those who are on, again, on YouTube, we can't see you, but if you are tuned in, please hit comments on YouTube. Let us know that you're rocking with us on Living More with the Morgans, you guys. And so we're gonna get into tonight's show. And like I said, we're gonna have some fun. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip hop music and culture. And you guys, it's crazy that we're even here at the 50-year mark.
Wow, it seems like it's been longer than that to me.
You know what? It feels like it's been shorter than that to me.
Really?
It don't seem like 50 years.
Wow.
You know, and again, I didn't come in on, like, you saw it all, right? Because of your age.
Yeah.
You saw it from ground floor, ground zero.
Right.
I came in the 80s, like I said, I was born in 81. I really didn't start probably listening to music and understanding music till like 83, 84, 85. Right. And even then, rap music, hip hop wasn't as widespread and mainstream just yet.
Right.
It was getting there, but it wasn't as mainstream. And the thing that was mainstream at that time, it was, pop music.
Yeah, pop music.
Michael Jackson, Madonna, Prince, all that was really big.
Cyndi Lauper.
And we were transitioning out of the 70s with disco really and funk music really into R&B and pop music and different things like that.
Right.
And rap and hip hop was really starting to slowly but surely creep in. But I had no idea that hip hop had started way back in the 70s.
Yes.
I had no idea. I didn't know it was that old.
Yes.
And it's not old, but I just didn't know that it had that much history.
Yes.
And so you guys, we're going to dig into that tonight because we're going to hopefully answer some things that you didn't know. If you got some questions about some things, again, hit us up in the comments and let us know who are some of your favorite artists, who are some of the most influential hip hop rap artists for you and where you grew up and the region that you grew up and in the era that you grew up in hip hop, right?
Yes.
So if you grew up rocking with the 80s, if you grew up rocking with the 90s or the early 2000s or the mid 2000s, right? Hip hop has transcended throughout the generations and throughout the decades. And so you may have grown up or have really started rocking to hip hop at a certain time. Let us know that. Let us know what you've heard. Carmenisha's saying Big Daddy Kane.
Come on here.
LL Cool J.
You better talk.
Rakim.
Yeah.
Jay-Z. DMX. Scarface. MC Lyte. Left Eye are some of her favorites. So thank you so much. Let us know who some of your favorites are. We're going to get into ours throughout the broadcast. But like I said, we're going to dig into some history. We're going to dig into, just really we want to educate people on really how did we get here to 50 years?
Right.
And where did hip hop come from? Because a lot of people probably don't know, especially a lot of people who have moved into the States, right? They may be new to what's going on here and what, they see the slang and the lingo and they see the language and all this different stuff. They see the culture, but they may not necessarily understand where it comes from and why it has been such a mainstay in our society, particularly in African American culture.
Correct.
And so I definitely want to dig into that tonight. And so you guys, there's so much rich history with regard to hip hop because, like I was saying, it was birthed originally in the 70s, in 1973, I believe. And it started out as DJ Kool Herc was a DJ in the Bronx, New York.
In the Bronx. Right.
And
Boogie Down.
New York is the birthplace of hip hop, of rap music. New York City, Boogie Down, Bronx. And it started on the streets really with just people throwing block parties. And the DJ Kool Herc and other DJs and other cats around the neighborhood, just to have a good time, just to, to get the kids out, it'd be hot or whatever, they would throw these block parties. And so when they would throw the block parties, they would put on records, old records, James Brown records, Sly and the Family Stone records, all the old funk, Parliament Funkadelic records and different things like that. They would put those records on and they would cut them and spin them so that the people in the neighborhood could dance to them, right? And just to be having a good time. And so that's how hip hop really got its start. And so you can definitely Google the history of hip hop. And I believe, like I said, it's 1973, so 50 years. 1973, DJ Kool Herc, H-E-R-C, Kool Herc was the pioneer, one of the defining men and DJs of hip hop and hip hop culture. And so it comes from a pure place because it was all about, having fun in the neighborhood, bringing, the kids in the neighborhood together. Now, again, this is inner city New York. And so when you're talking inner city New York in the 1970s in the Bronx, you're talking about poverty-stricken areas. You're talking about people in the projects, low-income housing. You're talking about, it's not a pretty sight, not a pretty neighborhood at that time. And so you've got a lot, especially in New York, because it was a melting pot of different cultures, particularly brown and black cultures. And so you had people coming from Cuba, the Dominican Republic. You had people coming in from Jamaica and Haiti and all Puerto Rico, Haiti, all those different places, and they were settling in on New York City. And so there was a lot of, it was just a lot of meshing there in New York City, particularly in the inner city, in the Bronx, in the poor neighborhoods. And so I believe that these guys got together and like, yo, we want to do something that's uplifting. We want to do something that's positive. And they did that. They did something for their community and for the culture just to have a good time. And you can watch tons of documentaries out there. Don't, you can fact check us, of course, but you can fact check us by going to Google and doing some of your own research to know the history of it. Because a lot of people may have this misconception, babe, that hip hop comes from an evil place.
And it doesn't. It doesn't. Hip hop came from a place of pain. Pain. It's an art form. It's a way to express. It's a way to express yourself. It's a way to talk about what's going on in your household, in your community, in your neighborhood. That's what the art form was for. When, like you were saying, when they originally started in 1973, you have to remember at that time in 1973, even though black and brown people were liberated as far as not being, enslaved and stuff, but they still lived in places where they didn't have the best of everything, rundown buildings. They didn't have good grocery stores. They didn't have, the nicer things as they did in the other parts of New York, in the, central New York. Manhattan, correct. So hip hop is an art form. Right. And we want to make sure we make this clear tonight that it didn't come from an evil place. Right. Hip hop came from a place of people who were geniuses. Right. These people are artists. They're musicians.
But let's reel it back just a little bit, because one thing that you hit on that I love that you hit on is that you talked about how there was hip hop comes from a source of pain.
Of pain.
And what I want people to understand, exactly, is struggle. And what I want people to understand is that here in America, and those, like I said, who may not necessarily be from here, right, or understand that hip hop does not come from a bad place, but it comes from a place of pain and struggle, where in the inner city kids and young people did not have access to a lot of the wealth, a lot of the schooling, a lot of the books and the resources and the education that those in the more affluent areas had access to. Right. And so because of that, there was oppression and depression in these areas, in these neighborhoods, in the inner city. It was, right? What we now would call the hood or the ghetto, right? Or the inner city or urban areas that they term it now. And so back then, those were areas where, and you have to remember, coming out of the 60s into the 70s, black people at that time are seeing their leaders being killed and gunned down.
Absolutely.
And so we're seeing Martin Luther King get killed, Medgar Evers get killed, Malcolm X get killed, John F. Kennedy get killed, Robert Kennedy get killed. All these leaders that we had in our community were getting gunned down out of the 60s. So that was a very low, depressing time for people of color, particularly those in poverty-stricken areas and low-income areas. Cities, and so there was a lot of struggle there. There was a lot of hurt there.
It was.
And so because of that,
still is,
black and brown children and young people did not have a voice in politics. They didn't have a voice in society.
I love how you're doing this.
Absolutely. Yeah. They did not have a voice in politics. They couldn't show up and say what they needed to say at city council hall meetings and different things like that. They didn't have a voice. When you're poor, you ain't got no voice. And when you're poor and you're black, you really didn't have a voice. Absolutely. You had no say so.
Right.
And so the pain, well, let me say it this way. The art form was birthed out of the essential need to voice our pain, our plight.
Right.
And that's what hip hop was birthed out of, is the need to say, this is what we're going through. If nobody else will hear us, if they won't hear us at the town hall meetings, they won't hear us in Washington, D.C., they won't hear us in the White House, they won't hear us on Capitol Hill, then how will they hear us? And so DJ Kool Herc, those DJs at the time, those rappers and artists at the time were geniuses, because they were able to convey the pain and the struggle that they were enduring, and that millions of people were enduring in the inner city, at that time.
That's right.
And so they didn't have instruments. They couldn't just go out and buy drums. They couldn't go out and buy synthesizers and keyboards. Those things were very costly at that time.
Right.
And so they didn't have access to wealth at that time. Yeah. So what they did is they would take records, vinyl records, and they would spin the records, and on record players, and they would put out big, speakers out there in the neighborhood, so people can rock to, people can dance to, so that people can get away from their problems.
Keep going.
Yeah,
that's it.
So people can get away from pain.
Right.
They could get away from the struggle.
A little bit of joy.
Just a little bit of joy.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what birthed the movement of hip hop. Is
absolutely.
If we could, it's really birthed in joy.
It's birthed.
If we can find a way to get past the struggle for a little bit by dancing, by singing, by rhyming, by conveying our stories, then that's what they were able to do there in New York. And so before we keep going, we got some people that are shouting out on here. I want to see who's on here. So my man Kevin Ahum is in the building. He said, grew up in the 90s listening to Jay-Z, Biggie, Pac. That's his top three. Candace said Queen Latifah, Nas, LL, Fabulous, Tupac, indeed. And Tamika said, of course, the Queen, Latifah, Yo-Yo, MC Lyte were some who paved the way for females in hip hop.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We definitely going to get into how women have greatly contributed to hip hop.
Yes.
And so, honey, what are your thoughts about, like I'm saying, about the pain and the struggle that really turned into an art form that they were able to use young people, young, out the box, innovative people, young people that were hurt, that were stigmatized, that were marginalized, that were told, oh, you can't come on this side of the tracks. You can't live over here in this part of the neighborhood. You can't go to these schools, so you're subjected to this low life. You're subjected to crime being in the neighborhood. You're subjected to drugs and alcohol. And here's the thing, drugs and alcohol didn't get, black people and brown people didn't bring in drugs and alcohol. No. Let's just keep it real with that.
No.
They didn't go out, they didn't have no money. So they didn't go out and bring in crack. They didn't go out and bring in alcohol in liquor stores and all this different stuff. No, that stuff was brought into the neighborhoods by the powers that be, the higher uppers who had money to push that stuff into those areas, right? And so talk to me about when you were young and the first time that you were kind of hearing it, someone here in Texas, and you're a young person, you're young, you're black, you're female, and you're seeing and hearing this in its infancy stages. What was that like to you?
It was the most exciting time. The most exciting time. I was in, I think, junior high going into high school, and when it, like you said, when it started, it wasn't real big yet. But, then Grandmaster Flash and all of them started coming, and you started hearing it, and you were like, what is this? This is innovative. This is like fun. And, and then with that came the gear, the clothing, all of it. And I thought to myself at that time, babe, this is genius, because you made a point that I wanna go back on.
Absolutely.
When you said they use this as an instrument to be able to voice what they were going through, and at that time, that must have been the most toughest time to do that.
Yes.
But you know what? They use their God-given talent to push past the pain, push past the struggle, push past what's going on in the neighborhood and in their homes, and were able to think and to create something that nobody on this earth has ever created.
Wow.
When I tell you that is genius to me.
It is.
It's a gift. It's an art form. It's a gift. Yes, they use it to make sure that they brought awareness to what they were going through in their neighborhood, in their home.
But I'm going to tell you something, though, and what people may not know. When it comes to black music, black American music, hip-hop was not the first to be the art form that we utilize to convey our pain and our stories and to tell our stories. And so we have to understand it. I'm going to educate you guys just a little bit on this program tonight if you didn't know, or if you did know and just kind of brush up on some things. Before there was hip hop, there was, and we can take it even further back. We can take it back to the blues.
Yeah, the blues.
Right? The blues music was birthed out of what? Out of struggle, out of pain. You can hear the pain in blues music, which was a black music art form. Black people invented blues music, right? If you think about gospel, early gospel music and how it was what? It was birthed out of pain. Where the slaves were singing and singing hymns and different things like that. And they were singing things that were code for them. So that they would know which routes to take, when to shut up, when to say something. When
the master was coming.
If the master was coming, those were signals and code that black African slaves were using among music. How ingenious is that? Where they were able to think about that. They were able to use music as a way to code and encrypt communication between one another as they're journeying on to freedom.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Incredible.
That's something that's incredible, and that's God-given.
Yes, it is.
So remember I said that. Remember
Yes.
that's God-given. You come on up into jazz. Jazz. And a lot of people say that New Orleans is the birthplace of jazz.
Mm-hmm.
Black music, right? The art form, the instrumentation, soloing on the piano, soloing on your horn. Those were ways of expression
Yes.
through the music.
Yes.
Those are black art forms,
Yes.
African American black art forms,
Absolutely.
where we took the rhythms of Africa.
Yes.
We took our roots.
Yes.
You dig what I'm saying?
Right.
We took our roots of Africa and the rhythms and the
Right.
drum beats and the musicianship that we get in our soul from Africa, and we created these art forms here to be able to communicate and tell our stories through a process of struggle.
And that's why when people, and we talk, let's go back to gospel music.
Yes.
That's why when we talk about gospel music, and you can hear in that gospel music that whoever is singing, like we just looked at her the other night. What is her name? It's an old lady, older back then.
Mahalia Jackson?
That's her.
Right.
When you can hear in her, not just the pain, but I mean, haven't you been in church where someone like that will sing a song and it will break you down?
Right.
Because in that is the pain, the struggle,
Right.
all of the things that we have gone through in this country, or to be brought to this country and to other countries. You can hear it in their singing. You can hear it when they beat the drums. You can hear it in the rap.
Right.
You know, you can see it even in the videos.
Right, right.
They brought all of that into and made it an art form,
Right.
but they were telling a story, just like when you said about the slaves. They were telling a story. Hey, they were singing songs saying, hey, this is going to happen. We're going to leave at midnight. We're going to do this.
Yes.
Tread the waters. Don't say nothing at this time. All of this is what they were doing.
Right.
And like you said, it's a God-given talent that even in the midst of pain and struggle,
Yes. Yes. Remember,
God gave them that.
and remember that you said that. Remember that it's God-given. I'm going to jump back to that. Remember that statement.
Yes.
Because let's jump from gospel, let's jump from jazz, let's jump from the blues, and let's jump into rock and roll.
Rock and roll.
Right?
Carmenisha just talked about that.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And I want to get into some of these comments as well.
Yes.
But rock and roll, you guys, is a black music art form.
Yes.
Rock and roll. And so
It
look
is.
at how diverse our music, our expression, our art form is. And so what has happened throughout the years, particularly here in America, is that things have been misappropriated by
Right.
the white culture, by white people. Now,
Right.
again, like we always say on this show, this
Right.
is not to slander white people.
No.
We got white brothers and sisters that are watching, white fam that is watching.
Right.
This is not to slander, but this is to inform and to educate.
Right.
This isn't to point guilt,
Right.
but this is to educate. So a lot of black music, black culture was misappropriated at that time. And so rock and roll had morphed into other things where larger than life figures like Elvis started doing a lot of what he was seeing black artists
Right.
do in the juke joints,
Right.
in the church,
Right.
And so a lot of his soul, a lot of his singing, a lot of his hip movements,
Right.
a lot of his gyrations, he was taking that, I won't even say stealing, because he was inspired.
He loved.
He
people.
loved black music and black culture.
Yes,
So
he
he was
did.
just inspired. He was a white kid that had a little bit had some soul. I have to
Yeah.
give it to him.
Yeah.
Had some soul.
Yeah.
Grew up in Memphis,
Yes.
in the South.
Yes.
And here he is emulating what he loves, and that was black music.
Yeah.
And so because he became bigger than life, he became huge, what a lot of the white audiences started thinking that, oh, these guys were these guys birthed and pioneered rock and roll. They didn't.
No.
You had black women playing the guitar,
Right.
singing the blues, singing rock and roll. They birthed rock and roll. And so we were on the history of hip hop, and we were talking about the pain. We were talking about the different musical art forms with jazz, with rock and roll, and how rock and roll was one of our art forms as well,
Right.
as a black art form.
Right.
And unfortunately, because of the racism, because of the bigotry, because of the lack of resources, we were not able to push our art form as we wanted to.
Correct.
And so a lot of our music, a lot of our style was misappropriated with white culture and with white artists.
Right.
And so artists like Elvis and artists like Jerry Lee Lewis and the Beatles and so forth, they took a lot of what they learned from black artists and black culture, and they put it behind their music and behind their art form, and then it started blowing up. So I want people to understand that rock and roll is a black music art form.
It is.
It was pioneered by black people.
Yes.
So when people are going around talking about, yeah, dude, yeah, it morphed into that through white culture and through Caucasian culture. But rock and roll music, rock music was black and is black music and black pioneered. And so we want people to know that as well. Jumping back to hip hop.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that we said is we talked about how gospel and the sound of gospel was God-given.
Yes.
Now, what people may not understand, even with gospel music, is that back in the day, gospel music was deemed sacrilegious, right? Yes. And so everybody wasn't rocking with Mahalia Jackson back then.
Wow.
Everybody wasn't rocking to music being played in church and to certain lyrics being sung in church. And so it was deemed as sacrilegious, as no, that ain't coming up. You ain't coming up in my church with that. Right. And there were many churches that Mahalia Jackson probably got kicked out of. The Clark sisters got kicked out of. And so we have to remember that there was an origin of those music forms and of those art forms that were not widely accepted back then.
That's correct.
But that doesn't mean that it wasn't of God.
Never.
That doesn't mean that it was evil.
Right.
So if they were calling gospel music evil back in the day, kind of sounds like what people were saying about hip hop and rap.
Absolutely.
That hip hop and rap music is evil.
Right.
And it is the devil's music.
Right.
And the reason why I totally beg to differ, and I will always debate this and stand up for this, for hip hop, is because think about how vast God is. And he is able to understand the times more so than we ever will be. Right. And God knows when to bring something into the earth so that generation can understand it and communicate with it. Going back to the slave days and with the early gospel music. Remember, they used to sing the hymns as code to be underground from their slave masters, to remain silent or to not be found out about what they were doing to escape to freedom, the next moves. So they used that singing, they used those hymns, they used that chanting as a way to communicate with one another. And so God brought that music, that art form for that time, for those people, for those enslaved people to be able to communicate. Wonder if he did the same thing in 1973.
I believe he did. I know he did. Because again, like I said, when it started, in my generation, in my time, it was revolutionary, you guys. From again, not only from the fact that it was an art form, but even in the culture of dress, all of it, the break dancing came about, all of these things came about, and it was just, again, it helped allow young people to express themselves.
And you talked about the dancing.
Oh, God.
And every art form has always had dancing, some kind of dance involved with it.
Absolutely.
And so, again, if you go back to the slave times and you go back when people were enslaved, there was dancing, there was moaning, there was mourning, there was different movements and gyrations that they did to the music, that the music and the message affected them in a way that they expressed themselves through dance.
That's right.
Same thing with the blues. Same thing with jazz. Same thing with rock and roll. So movement and dance has always been a direct expression from the art form of the music that was created. So when you jump over here to hip hop in 1973, getting into the 80s, you were seeing the pop locking, and you were seeing the break dancing. And so all of those movements were a part. The pop locking came from how the record was being heard. So when the record was being cut, they popped their bodies according to how the record was being moved, and how the record, how the beat and the cadence was going on the track. You dig what I'm saying? You did. And so people, I want people to understand that with the music came the dance, came the break dancing, came the pop locking, came all those different things that you see. And then what transforms out of that or morphs into the culture, the lingo, the swag. Why? Because the lingo is a language. Remember, during the slave times, the enslaved people were speaking what? A code. They were speaking a language, a lingo. Same thing with hip hop, you guys. Same thing with during the jazz era. Hey, you cool cats and daddy-o, they had their lingo. They had their language. And there was a generation that before them, they couldn't stand it. They couldn't stand all that old jazz stuff. That's not going. And we still have jazz decades later. We still have rock and roll decades later. And so I want people to understand that are watching is that we're celebrating 50 years of hip hop, not just the music, but the culture that has come from it. And the culture that has come from it, again, has come out of the music, has come out of the clothing, has come out of the communication, has come out of the lingo and the swag and the language. And that's all birthed out of the struggle that Black African Americans had to endure in the inner city.
And they decided, I believe that they said, we're going to use this. And this is going to be a vehicle for us that's going to help us to be able to deal with the pain and the struggle that they were going through. So, again, if you think about what Honey has said a few moments ago about, rock and roll, and then the early times of gospel and all of that. And then when the slaves were doing it, this was, God gave them that so that they can be able to do what? To I believe to get through it. To get through it. And they did. And it has made us a great people. We're wonderful people that and have so much strength, that we're so strong.
And we're a people that have been able to make something out of nothing.
That's what I was trying to say.
And that's what hip hop is birthed from. Something is literally out of nothing. Where these people had nothing, and they have birthed something that is still 50 years strong.
That's around the world.
And I want to get to that. I want to touch on that. We're going to get there on the global impact of hip hop. The reason why it's so significant that they started with nothing, because other art forms that are popular in today's society had backing, had money. Okay. And so in the early years of hip hop, we didn't look at it, Black people, we didn't look at it as a means to make money.
No.
We never thought of it. They never thought of it. Kool Herc and those guys and those DJs out there in the Bronx, they never looked at it as a way as, we can make money. They looked at it as a way of escape, as a way to have some peace and some joy, and to say, you know what, this is ours. And then along with that came the artwork and the graffiti. And again, this is a way to express themselves, because the graffiti comes in with knowing that these artists are tagging their art. And when they tag their art, they're basically saying or leaving that message on that wall or whatever they're spray painting, that, hey, this is who I am and I was here. That is a method of validation.
Absolutely.
And it's also a method of healing.
There you go.
Okay. And so we need to go there, because what people need to understand about hip hop, it was also a way to heal. And I'm going to jump into some lyrics, because right now in our society, we're talking a lot about mental illness and mental healing and mental awareness and different things like that. But you have to understand that in the early mainstream music, if you listen to those rap lyrics, That's what a lot of those cats were talking about.
were.
They were talking about the oppression and a lot of the strife that they were seeing in their neighborhoods and their communities that they weren't able to say anything about.
Right.
And they're talking about the substandard living conditions that they're subjected to.
Right.
And so they're talking about how we have to grow up in New York City in the projects, and there ain't no running water, or we're seeing mama strung out on crack and on drugs and all these different things.
Right.
And so that was their way of conveying their pain and their hurt and finding a way to heal through the music, through the art form, through the culture,
Right.
through tagging that graffiti, was making that young man say, you know what, if you won't pay attention to me, if you won't esteem me, if you won't uplift me, if you won't tell me who I am, then I'm going to leave my mark on this world some way. And I'm going to do it through this graffiti. I'm going to do it through creating this art form.
Right.
And so that was their way of expressing themselves, because they didn't have the money to do it any other way.
They didn't have the means.
They didn't have the means and the resources. Wasn't nobody coming to hand those kids canvases and oil paints and pastels. No.
Right.
And so we have to understand that with hip hop, that was our original method of mental awareness, of mental healing.
Right.
What we're talking about today, they were talking about it 50 years ago.
Right.
That's what the birth comes, that's where it is birthed, out of the pain. And how do we find resolution? How do we find solace? How do we find peace
Right.
in this? And I want to recite some lyrics that to a very popular, one of the first mainstream hip hop songs by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five.
Yeah.
And I want to recite these lyrics because I want you guys to understand this. And the name of the song is called "The Message." And I want to say this before I jump into the lyrics, is that the reason why I wanted to give you guys the history on a little bit on gospel music and jazz and all those things, and how those are God-given art forms, is because hip hop has taken such a beat down from people who don't even know about it.
Right.
And it has taken on
the culture at all.
They don't understand the culture, they don't understand the history. And they don't understand the plight of the people from where this culture and where this music comes from.
Right.
And so they look at stuff on the surface and they see today with the violence and they see the rioting and they see all the negative stuff. Right. But there is a root to that as well. And we're going to dig into that. But before we dig into that, we got to understand that early on, hip hop, I believe, and I will fight for this, I believe that it was God's way to communicate with a now generation that he knew would connect through the music and the culture and the clothing and the dancing and all the art forms. And he knew that the world would be impacted by it.
Right.
The world was not necessarily impacted by jazz the way it has been hip hop.
Right.
Don't get me wrong.
No,
jazz is global.
Awesome. Yes,
it's awesome and it's global.
Yes, global.
But nothing is as widespread on this planet as hip hop culture.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we can prove that we've traveled around the world.
Yes. We've seen it.
We've seen it in Asia. We've seen it in Europe.
And let's give some perspective to that, because I remember the first time, I traveled to Europe back in 2006, and I was in Madrid, Spain.
Right.
And I can remember getting off the plane, headed to the hotel, and I'm seeing graffiti everywhere.
Right.
And it blew me away, because I'm thinking, this is Europe. I'm thinking, cobblestone roads and white columns and coliseums and all these different castles and everything. But I'm seeing graffiti on everything in Madrid, Spain.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, what are they tagging? And you're seeing words in English, you're seeing words in Spanish, of course, but you're seeing hip hop influence and hip hop culture all the way out there in Madrid, Spain.
Wow.
And so I remember my cousin Nathan. He was about 16 at the time, and he couldn't speak a lick of English.
Yeah, he's Spanish.
He's Spanish and black.
Yeah.
And but he loved Tupac.
Yeah.
And he loved hip hop culture, and he dressed like a brother.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he had the baggy pants, the whole swag, everything. His whole swag was African American.
Yes.
But here he is, he's grown up in Spain his whole life. He's never been to America. And that is what he identifies with. So it's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Talk about the time when we went to Japan, babe, and what we saw there.
This, gosh, I think we were downtown, in the downtown area, I think it was, and we were there, and we saw all of these young people that was dressed up in hip hop and different cultures, you know, that, and we were like, wait a minute, what is going on? And how we saw hip hop in Japan. Right. You know? Right. And it was like, wow, this has affected the world.
I mean, it was like I remember distinctly seeing the young girls.
The young girls, yeah.
Dressed like Lil' Kim.
Yes, dressed like Lil' Kim.
I'm serious. They were dressed like Lil' Kim.
They were.
And we went in like 2015, so I don't think Cardi B and them were out. I think maybe, what's the other one? Not Cardi B, but Nicki Minaj. I think she may have been out by then.
Right.
But they were just emulating all of these black hip hop artists, the young Japanese girls there.
Right.
And you saw it in the makeup, you saw it in how they were wearing their hair, how they were wearing their clothes, how they were, you know, expressing themselves, how they talked. You saw the break dancers everywhere on the streets.
Yes.
I mean, and they're in the track suits and everything in Japan, y'all.
Japan.
And when we saw this in Tokyo, and when we saw this, it just blew us away to see that what we've grown up seeing our whole lives has affected the planet.
It has.
Fast forward to 2021. We take a trip to Cairo, Egypt, fam.
Yes. Oh, gosh.
And y'all know, I adore Africa. We both do. We adore Africa.
Yes.
But we got a chance to go to Cairo, and we're in Cairo, and we do a horse and carriage ride around the city.
Absolutely.
And it's beautiful at night. You're right there on the Nile River, and you can get a horse and carriage, and you got vendors come up to you giving you roses and da-da-da-da. But the thing that struck us, it was a young Egyptian kid. He looked like a brother because he had his hair slicked back. He looked like a brother, right? He looked like one of us over here. But the whole time, because I think he started playing like some regular music, right? Some like regular romantic type music. And then he kind of looked back at us, and we couldn't understand what he was saying because he spoke Arabic.
Yeah.
But we were kind of like, you know, let's get into it. Brother puts on some Egyptian Arabic hip hop that is banging.
You guys.
And we're blown away, like,
we are blown
where are we right now?
Yes.
You know, and it was second nature to them.
It was.
It was second nature to them. And so you guys.
It banged.
Oh, it bangs.
We still playing.
Here's the thing. It wasn't like it was watered down.
Right.
You know, for Egypt. No, it was like the production on these tracks was like, these joints slapped.
One of their biggest artists there, rap artists, is Muhammad Ramadan.
Yeah.
Love the dude.
The dude goes so hard.
He's the truth.
To the point, you guys, we were downloading their stuff when we got back to the States.
Downloaded.
But that's the influence of the culture. And so when you look at that, you guys, and how it is widespread, you can go anywhere in the world. You can go to China.
Yes.
You can go to Taiwan. You can go to Australia. And you're going to see hip hop and hip hop influence. Right. But not only you're going to see it in the music, not only you're going to see it in the clothes and the lingo and the language, but you're seeing it in business. If you cut on your television, you're seeing the influence of hip hop in the commercials. You're seeing the influence of hip hop in the television ads. You're seeing it in the NBA.
Yes.
You know, in professional sports, in the soccer, and football, and American football. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Why? Because it is a language. So to tell me that that's something of the devil, that's foolish.
No.
To tell me that the devil doesn't create anything. He steals everything.
Right. He's a cheap copy.
He's a counterfeit.
Counterfeit.
So he knows the potential of a thing when it is unleashed on the earth.
Yeah.
The problem that we have, us, is that we got to praise, speak in tongues for 10 years, 20 years to make sure that it's from God. And then we lose its potency. We lose its potential of what it was supposed to be. We should be able to discern a thing. Is that of God?
Right.
We weren't able to do that on the early stages of hip hop.
Right.
And so now here we are trying to accept it. Now we're trying to be a part of it. Now we're trying to bring it. Oh, it's cool for the little church kids now. It was always cool.
It was always cool.
But it took you 30 years to discern if it was of God or not.
Right.
Something this powerful, something this widespread could not be created by the devil.
Never.
No way.
Never.
No way.
No.
And God knew that this would be a way for us to communicate. Think about this, babe. And and I'm going on the religious tip a little bit. And I'm gonna jump on this and I'm gonna jump off. When I think about Jesus, right? If Jesus were here today, he would be a 33-year-old millennial. You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How do 33-year-old millennials talk, dance, sing? How do they interact? Would he be around like we always depicted him? I am the Son of God, thou art thine and thine art. He wouldn't be saying, no, thine art, thou art thine. No, he wasn't saying it then. That's all King James.
Yes, King James.
Right? If he was here today, he would know how to mesh in with the culture, because when Judas came and kissed him, it was a signal to the Roman soldiers, that's the one.
Right.
Because they couldn't tell who he didn't have anything that differentiated him from everybody else.
Right.
He blended in with the culture.
Right.
He blended in with the crowd. You got to remember, he's 33 years old.
Right. He's
He's not 53. He's
Right.
not 63.
Right.
He's 33 years old.
33 years old. Right.
And here's a 33-year-old cat who's calling men twice his age hypocrites, brood of vipers. He's using slang insults to older men who were deceiving people with religion during his time. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
The word hypocrite would be a slang term in his time. Right? Brood of vipers.
Yeah.
You brood of vipers would be a slang term during his time.
Yeah, that's right.
Why? Because he's 33.
Right.
Now, I didn't mean to go into Bible study, you guys, but God understood the times.
Yes.
And so he brought us hip hop during this time. The only problem is that our people didn't gravitate towards it.
Right.
Our people had to keep, oh, is it God? Oh, Lord. And we were seeing some of the negative things that we didn't have the power over.
Right.
And what are those negative things? Because again, we didn't look at it as a means to make money. We looked at it as a means to help liberate and help people deal and cope with what they were seeing and enduring in impoverished areas.
Right.
And so it wasn't about money.
Right.
But the powers that be, and we'll say it, affluent, white, Caucasian executives saw this as a cash cow.
Yeah. And that's when the corruption
started.
Right.
That's when hip hop transformed and morphed into something that it was not supposed to be.
Not its original form.
And not its original form,
Right.
you guys.
Right.
And so I want to check out some of the comments on here. And you guys have been with us, and thank you guys for staying with us. We definitely appreciate it.
Yes.
Our very own prophetess Beverly Anike is in the building. She says, looking good, son and daughter.
Thank you
So much for being on, Mama.
Yes.
Toya Alexander is on. Carmenisha said, Tupac with Brenda's got a baby, brought the pain to
gosh.
absolutely.
Oh boy, yes.
And see, these are stories that these artists were painting and depicting of what was going on in our culture.
Right. Within themselves,
Yes.
and in the community, and in the streets, and
Right.
where they were, they lived.
Right.
And this was their way of letting the world know, literally, you guys were hurting here.
Right. Right.
Right?
Tamika said, informing what was going on in the inner cities, it was their political voice, hip hop. Candace said, funny, we have a Bible version called The Message
Right.
now. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
She said, must be culturally relevant, but not culturally influenced, so you may influence. Tamika said, hip hop was incorporated in gospel with the Winans, especially the track It's Time.
Right.
Yes. And you're absolutely right.
That's right.
What the Winans early on, and you have to remember, Tamika, they took a beat down from the church.
Just like Kirk.
Just like Kirk Franklin.
He still takes
and he's still taking a beat
yeah,
down. But the Winans took a beat down because they incorporated, I think it was Teddy Riley who did the track, It's Time.
Yeah,
Yeah, he did. Teddy Riley, who was a hip-hop R&B producer, did the track for the Winans, It's Time. And the Winans caught hell from the church, not from the secular.
Right.
They actually got love from the secular, but they caught hell from church folk. Why? Because we were still saying, oh, that's the devil's music. Oh, God, that ain't God. That ain't God. And now we've missed the boat and we're late. And now we're trying to hurry up and catch up and say, oh, no, it's cool now. We can do it. We're holy hip hop. We're down with it. We're cool. We're hip.
Right.
And we're so corny.
It's corny.
It's corny. It's cheesy. And we're 3 decades behind.
You're right.
And the rest of the world is looking at us like, what are you doing? You're old, you're outdated, you're not fresh, and your Jesus is boring.
Right.
When he could have been innovative and creative and rode the wave that he created and instituted. But what we do is we sit on the sidelines and complain rather than discern, God, what are you doing with this?
Right. What are you doing in this?
What are you doing in this?
Right. And that's what he wanted us to do. He wanted us to take it. It's something that he gave us. He wanted us to take it and to run with it so that we could do what? Again, it's around the world. Right. We could bridge the gap with different cultures. We could stop all of this racism and stop all of this, talking about one another. Oh, you guys do this and you're not this and you're not that. And we could have dismissed all of these negative things.
I remember one of the tracks early on with Run DMC and Aerosmith called Run This Way.
Oh yeah, we love that.
And that was one of the early mainstream tracks that brought the white suburban culture and the black urban culture, inner city culture together.
Yes.
And what it did is it started helping to kind of bridge the gap.
Yes.
Where white audiences were saying, what is this?
Yeah.
Okay, this is cool.
Yes.
If Aerosmith can get down with it, then let's give it a try. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
And then the brothers were saying, okay, what is this? What if Run DMC can get down with Aerosmith and this rock and roll?
Right.
And that was the bridging. That is a God thing, family. That's not a devil thing.
Yeah.
To help bridge the gap through music, through cultures.
Yes.
To reach over the aisle and shake your hand. That's a God thing all day, every day.
Right. To get an understanding of one another's cultures.
Right.
That's exactly.
But we demonize what we don't understand.
We do.
Whatever we don't understand something, we instantly say that's the devil, that ain't God, that's wrong, that's evil.
But even the Bible says, as my daddy quotes this to us as we were growing up, in all thou getting.
Get an understanding.
Get an understanding.
Yes.
That means if you don't believe in it, you think it's the devil or whatever, go back to God.
Right.
Say, Father, I don't understand this.
Yes.
What are you doing in this?
Yes.
What are you saying? Or is this of you?
Yes.
Like you said, discerning. We have to come from a place, because when we don't do that, we come from a place of looking what? Like we're ignorant.
No, we're ignorant.
Right.
Tamika said something. She said, if you remember, Vicki Winans she performed at the Gospel Music Awards, Don't Throw Your Life Away. And if you remember, Vicki had hip-hop dancers. I do remember that.
I do remember
hip-hop dancers, when she performed at the awards, the church talked bad about her. And so I also want to jump back. Essence is on. Our daughter Essence is in the building as well. She said Run DMC and Bad Boy Landa. Y'all look fire. So thank you, Es, for joining us tonight. Yeah. And so, you guys, I know we've been on longer. We're going to keep it going for tonight. But you're absolutely right, Tamika. I remember that very well when Vicki Winans came out and she had the hip hop dancers, and the church raked her over the coals. But I remember one thing, and I'm going to share this story, and we're going to jump further into our program before we get out of here. Is I remember I was probably about 16, 17 years old in 1997. And I was not saved. I didn't grow up in the church. I knew of church. I knew of Jesus. I knew God. I had been baptized before at 13 and so on. But I wasn't living a saved life. I was promiscuous. I was 17 years old. I was getting my stroke on, my boogie on, my groove on, whatever you want to call it. I was getting it on. And I can remember, and I had already known of Kirk Franklin, but I can remember back in like 97 or so, my sister Asia was in a gospel group that was formed here in Dallas under Linda Seawright, God's Property. And Kirk and God's Property had basically merged together. I believe God's Property was signed to Kirk's record label, and they put out this album for God's Property. To date, in 2023, it is one of the biggest selling gospel albums of all time, Kirk Franklin, God's Property. And I remember in 97 when Stomp dropped.
I remember that. That was fire.
Stomp dropped, and he took, I believe it was a Parliament Funkadelic One Nation Under the Groove sample.
Yeah, he did.
He took the track and he dropped the beat with it, had the choir singing on it. And then he had the hip hop dancers in the video. He put a video to it. The video was dope. The video was fire. The video was being seen on the Disney Channel. The video was being seen on MTV, VH1, The Box. All of those platforms were playing this gospel song by Kirk Franklin. It was groundbreaking. I was 16, 17 years old, and I said, they're from Dallas. They're from right here in the Metroplex. This is humongous. But you know what I heard? I heard he's the devil. From folk who said they love God and they love Jesus. And I'm hearing them denigrate and berate this man and rake him over the coals. But his music was reaching us.
That's what it was supposed to do.
It was supposed to do that. Absolutely. It was supposed to do that. God knew that at the cross, where he died, wasn't going to reach me. And it wasn't going to reach people like me. He knew that.
But he knew that because you're a young person. And what he was trying to do, and what he still is trying to do, is to bring the young people in and show them that you guys, God don't have to be boring. He don't have to be bunk. He loves you. He's there for you. He was young too.
Yes.
That's what he was trying to do. Then when you do get in there, and then you do hear those old 100s like my daddy said.
And you respect them more.
You respect them more.
Yes. It's like...
Because when my daddy sings it now, when we were growing up, we were like, oh, daddy. But then we were like, okay, it was cool, But we had... other songs that we could sing in the church and stuff that kind of related to us at that time.
Yes.
But so when we did hear Dad sing them old 100, Father, I stretch my hand to thee, and all of those things. Again, these are songs from the era of when they were enslaved. These are songs that that was birthed out of that. We respected it.
And I was going to say that. And I was going to say that is because what Kirk did with Stomp, and someone else said, I think Candid said, Revolution. Revolution was a track done by Darkchild.
Yes.
And again, it was hip hop influenced, and it was a humongous track with Kirk Franklin and 1NC, I believe, at the time. Because I think
that's right.
He only did one album with God's Property, and then it was 1NC that came after that.
Yes.
But it was humongous. It was huge. And what I believe is that was the hook for a lot of people in our generation that had grown up on hip hop, that had grown up on rap. And God said, I will use the foolish things to confound the wise. God will use anybody. If he will make a mule talk and rebuke a man, then he can use a hip hop beat, a hip hop backbeat with gospel lyrics on top of it.
We have to stop reducing God to man.
Right.
He's not.
And putting him in our little box, in our bubble.
Right.
Yeah.
Because again, hip hop was a vehicle to reach across the aisle. It was a vehicle to showcase pain, so that people could do something about the pain, about the misery, about the things that people were going through. This is what it was for. When I have to go back. It originated in my time, me growing up. I was born in 68.
Yeah.
So I began to love music and stuff. I grew up in a house with music. I thank God for my parents. We listened to all types of music.
Yes.
And it was the blues, which I don't care for personally, but I understand it. Mm-hmm. The blues, we did listen to a little bit of rock and roll. When my brother and I were into hip hop, we didn't get into hip hop. I was talking to my husband about this the other day. We was talking about it. I didn't get into hip hop when the West Coast came in, which I still like them as well. But when we listened to it coming from East Texas, it was like New York. It was a dream of ours to be in New York, to go to New York and to be around that type of life and culture. Absolutely. My brother ended up living there, graduating from college, going to college at Columbia there, living the life there, meeting Daddy, meeting what was
Farnsworth Bentley.
Farnsworth Bentley is my brother's great friend. Mm-hmm. They're great friends, great guys. And it was just, rapping. I formed a group, you guys. Mm-hmm. This is my childhood. Right. I formed a group in high school. Look, I was serious about it. My best friend Shakita Love, we call her Kiki, the human beatbox. My other friend Pam, she was another rapper. We was writing our rhymes. Right. We were serious about this because why? The women began to come up in that.
Yes.
We had MC Light. We were looking at JJ Fad. We were looking at Yo-Yo. We were like, wait a minute. Yeah. The guys are doing it. We can do it too.
And here's the thing.
We can be just as fly.
And the women came in banging. Y'all came in right.
Right.
And I love that because we got to shout out to the ladies.
Yes.
Because they set it off with the hip hop culture as well.
And
they were right there in there with the men, and they were telling their stories.
Yes.
And they were letting it be known. See, back then it was more positive though.
It was more positive.
The ladies was coming in and saying, okay, you know what? It wasn't about all this showing all the skin and all this different stuff, but they were letting them know, I'm still a woman. I'm a lady.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm tender. I'm soft. But I'm
though.
Raw, and I can cut you with these lyrics and these bars. And so
that's what I thought.
Shout out to the ladies of hip hop as well. But you know what, babe? It's getting late, and I'm thinking we might have to do a part 2 of this.
We have to do a part 2.
We're going to do a part 2. If you guys are cool with us doing a part 2, let us know. Drop some comments in the comment section. Let us know if you want to do a part 2 of the hip hop episode. We got to do a part 2 because there's so much we got to dig into, you guys. And so we're just really kind of scratching the surface. And of course, the technical difficulties earlier kind of disrupted some things and kind of, it just kind of messed up the flow on some things. But we got through it. But if you guys think we should do a part 2, we definitely want to. We want to talk about more about the ladies, the lyrics, and then we're going to talk about the pros and cons of hip hop as well, because there is some good and there is some bad. And we're going to talk about the future of hip hop, where hip hop is right now, where it's going. We're going to talk about the art form and how it's been kind of manipulated and how it's been twisted and distorted in some ways. And so we're going to get into much more juicy topics about hip hop, you guys. And so if you rocked with us tonight, again, we appreciate you guys so much. We're going to jump off the air for tonight, but we will be back next Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. Central, 9:30 Eastern. And you guys, again, while we're doing this, though, let us know. Hit us up on our social media platforms. Hit us up in the inbox. Share on your wall. But let us know what you want to talk about. We're going to still give our top 20 favorite hip-hop artists of all time. So part 2, we're going to definitely do that. But we're going to dig even more into hip-hop as we celebrate 50 years of hip-hop culture, you guys. And so, babe, you want to say anything before we get up out of here?
I'm looking at the comments, and everyone is saying part 2, so it's on and popping. We're going to do that part 2, you guys. You guys, when we come back next week, I want you guys to get, tag.
Yes.
Tag a lot of people. Bring your people in, you guys, and let's do this. Let's have a good time.
Let's do this. And where my fellas at, man? I need to see more of my fellas online. I need to get
yeah.
y'all in here because we're going to talk about this hip hop. We're going to talk about culture, how has it affected our communities, how has it affected the world. And again, with this tonight's episode, we're just scratching the surface, you guys. And so part 2 is coming next Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. Central, 9:30 Eastern. And until then, you guys, we're going to sign off. We love you guys.
Peace.
Peace.